Fellas, listen up. When a woman starts ignoring you, goes quiet, stops replying, suddenly becomes busy, I know that temptation. That urge to text again, call again, show her you care, try to fix it, try to win her back. When a woman starts pulling away or ignoring you, it can trigger something deep, especially if you're emotionally invested. That silence can feel like rejection, like disrespect, even like abandonment, and the instinct for a lot of men. Chase, try harder, call more, text again. Show her you're interested. Show her you care. But here's what most don't understand. Chasing is not the same as effort. Effort is mutual. It's healthy. It flows between two people who are both emotionally present. Chasing, on the other hand, is effort given to someone who's no longer giving it back. And when you do that, you don't just lose her respect, you slowly start to lose your own. You can't value yourself and chase someone who's avoiding you at the same time. One cancels out the other. Because every time you reach out to someone who's ignoring you, every time you double, text, every time you wait by the phone hoping for a reply that never comes, you're silently telling yourself, I'm not enough unless she chooses me. And that belief will ruin you. You see, when a woman truly wants you in her life, she won't leave you guessing. She won't disappear, go cold, and expect you to chase her down like it's a game. She'll communicate. She'll clarify, she'll stay connected, and if she doesn't, that's your sign, not your challenge. This is where you need to draw the line, not out of pride, but out of self-respect. You're not supposed to be fighting for a spot in someone's life. You're not meant to beg for basic attention. If you have to convince her to see your worth, she was never aligned with it to begin with, and let's be real, some women ignore men on purpose. Not because they don't care, but because they want control. They want to test how much power they have. They want to see if you'll chase, but understand this. The more you chase someone who's ignoring you, the more power you give away. You shift the dynamic from mutual to imbalanced, from connection to control, and that's not love, that's insecurity playing out in real time. The strongest move you can make is to fall back, not out of spite, but out of clarity, because a man who values himself knows that attention is not love. Presence is, engagement is, consistency is, and if a woman can't offer that, then you're better off investing that energy back into your purpose, your peace, your self-growth. Falling back isn't weakness, it's awareness. It's the refusal to pour into someone who shows you they're no longer holding a cup. It's the wisdom to stop giving access to someone who doesn't even knock anymore. And it's the maturity to realize, if I keep chasing, I'll keep bleeding self-worth for someone who's not even reaching out a hand, so don't chase. Not because you're playing hard to get, not because you're trying to punish her, but because you finally understand you're not meant to convince anyone to see your value. You're meant to know it first. Silence isn't just the absence of words, it's a language all on its own. And when a woman stops talking, stops texting, stops showing up in the way she used to, it's easy to get confused. You start replaying old conversations, checking if you said something wrong, wondering if she's just busy or testing you. But in moments like these, it's not what's being said that matters, it's what's not being said. You need to understand something. Silence is rarely neutral. It either comes from peace or distance, from feeling safe with you or needing space from you. And if that silence follows consistency, affection, connection, then maybe, yes, something happened. But if that silence follows a slow drift, dry replies last, minute cancellations, or energy that's been off for a while, then it's not confusion, it's communication. She just doesn't want to say it out loud. See, People who avoid hard conversations will often choose silence instead. They won't break things off. They won't express what they're really feeling. They just hope you'll get the hint, without them having to be the bad guy. And as painful as that is, it's still a message. It's clarity dressed up as confusion. But only if you're willing to stop ignoring the silence and start hearing it for what it really is. Some men get stuck here. They take her silence as a challenge instead of a signal. They think if they say the right thing, show more attention, or stay persistent, she'll come back around. But here's the reality. When someone wants to speak to you, they will. When they care about clarity, they won't leave you in emotional limbo. Silence isn't a green light to push harder. It's a red flag saying slow down, pay attention, read between the lines. You have to stop translating silence into hope. That's where a lot of pain comes from. Hoping her silence is temporary, hoping it's stress, hoping it's just a phase. But silence stretches the longer you excuse it. It deepens every time you fill in the blanks with your own assumptions. And the longer you listen to what you wish she would say, the further you get from the truth of what her silence is already saying. Sometimes silence means she's no longer invested. Sometimes it means she's emotionally overwhelmed. Sometimes it means she never had the courage to end things properly. Whatever the reason is, it's not your job to decode it into something comfortable. It's your job to respect yourself enough to listen without needing a speech. Not every story ends with a goodbye. Sometimes the goodbye is the silence itself. And no matter how much you care, no matter how strong the connection once felt, you can't force communication from someone who has chosen to disconnect. You can't drag clarity out of silence when silence was their way of telling you they're done speaking in the first place. When a woman starts ignoring you, pulling back, or acting distant, it's natural to feel something rise up inside you. Frustration, confusion, maybe even panic. Especially if you're emotionally invested, your first instinct might be to react. To reach out impulsively, to demand answers, to fix whatever's going wrong before it slips further away. But here's the hard truth. Your reaction in that moment doesn't just show her who you are. It reminds you who you are. And if you react emotionally without grounding yourself first, you risk handing over your power for the sake of temporary comfort. Emotions aren't the enemy. You're allowed to feel disappointed. You're allowed to feel hurt. But there's a difference between feeling emotion and being led by it. When you respond from insecurity, from fear of loss, from a need for validation, you come across as desperate even if your heart is in the right place. That desperation doesn't bring people closer. It pushes them further away. Confidence, on the other hand, doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you act cold or unbothered. It means you pause, you breathe, you get clear on what's happening, and what kind of response honors your dignity, not your ego. Let's say she stops texting you back. Your emotion might say, send another message. Maybe she didn't see it. Confidence says, if she wanted to reply, she would have. I'm not chasing confusion. Emotion says, you need to fix this before she moves on. Confidence says, if it's real, it won't require begging. If it's not mine to hold on to. You don't gain respect by over-explaining yourself to someone who isn't listening. You don't earn love by proving your worth to someone who stopped showing up. You respond with confidence by staying centered in who you are, even when things feel uncertain, and yes, that takes strength. Because silence makes your insecurities loud. Being ignored triggers parts of you that want to be chosen, validated, and reassured. But that's where your inner work shows up. Confidence doesn't require a performance. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about knowing you care, but choosing not to betray your standards in the process. Responding with confidence means setting a boundary without making a scene. It means being direct without being dramatic. It means saying less, but meaning more. It means knowing that your peace isn't up for negotiation just because someone else is inconsistent. She might come back, she might not, but how you carry yourself in the in-between, that's what defines your energy. That's what separates a man who's grounded from a man who's just reacting. You don't need to force clarity from someone who won't give it freely. You don't need to fix energy that's no longer being offered. When someone shifts on you, let your response be rooted in self-worth, not emotional survival. Because confidence is silent strength, not loud panic. It's stillness in uncertainty. It's the ability to hold space for both disappointment and dignity without letting either control your next move. There's a difference between disappearing to play games and pulling back with intention. When a woman starts ignoring you, acting cold, or switching up her energy without explanation, your response has to come from clarity, not pride, not bitterness, not spite, but from self-awareness and alignment. Pulling back doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're choosing not to force energy that's no longer flowing. You're stepping away to protect your peace, not punish her. You're making space not out of ego, but out of necessity. Because here's the truth. Not every shift deserves a reaction, and not every silence deserves your continued investment. Purposeful distance isn't passive. It's a conscious decision. You're not just waiting to see what happens. You're watching the situation with clear eyes. You're observing, not assuming. You're making room for truth to reveal itself. And you're doing that without needing to force clarity from someone who may not be emotionally ready or willing to give it. Most men struggle here. They think if they stay present enough, loyal enough, available enough, she'll come around. But constantly showing up for someone who's checked out emotionally doesn't create connection. It creates a dynamic of imbalance. And when you stay too long in that space, you end up negotiating your own value. Pulling back with purpose is how you break that cycle. It's not about ignoring her back. It's about shifting your attention inward, reclaiming your energy, redirecting the time you are spending on trying to fix it into understanding what you need, what you deserve, and what you're willing to tolerate. It's also how you reset the dynamic. When someone feels they can ignore you with no consequence, they start viewing your presence as optional. And optional energy is never respected long term, but when you pull back, not to create anxiety, but to establish emotional balance, it forces clarity, because in your silence, they have to feel the absence of what you once gave so freely. And in that space, two things can happen. Either they step forward with clarity, or they let the silence continue. Either way, you're not chasing answers, you're allowing the situation to show you the truth. And whatever that truth is, you're grounded enough to receive it. Pulling back with purpose is about knowing your worth without needing it proven. It's about choosing peace over performance. It's about moving with intention, not reactivity. And it's about standing in the belief that if someone truly values you, your absence will speak volumes louder than your constant presence ever could. You're not trying to manipulate the situation. You're just no longer willing to force energy where it's not being returned. And if that space reveals distance instead of effort, that's a reflection of their capacity, not your value. When a woman starts pulling away, going silent, or acting indifferent, your attention naturally shifts outward. You start analyzing her every move. When she was last online, how long it took her to reply, how her tone changed, why she's acting different. Your energy becomes consumed by the question, what is she thinking? But here's the truth, you can't control her reaction. You can only control your response. And when you give all your energy to what she's doing or not doing, you disconnect from yourself. You stop checking in with your own needs, your own emotions, your own peace. You start measuring your value by how she treats you instead of how you show up for yourself. That's why focusing on you isn't selfish, it's survival. It's how you stop spiraling into overthinking. It's how you regain emotional balance. It's how you shift from chasing validation to protecting your center. Because when you constantly monitor someone else's behavior, you start living in reaction mode. And living in reaction mode will drain your confidence faster than anything else. You begin to think, maybe if I say this, she'll respond differently. Or maybe if I pull away, she'll chase me. But now you're not really pulling back for peace. You're pulling back for a result. You're still focused on her, and as long as she's at the center of your decisions, you're not truly in your power. You're performing, not healing. There's a deeper layer to this. Sometimes when a woman changes how she treats you, it taps into old wounds. Rejection, abandonment, feeling unseen, and instead of facing those feelings, you obsess over her actions as a distraction. But no woman, not even the right one, can heal what you haven't acknowledged within yourself. That work is yours. That growth is yours, and that's why focusing on her reaction keeps you stuck. It stops the inner work that actually sets you free. When you focus on you, everything shifts. You start asking different questions. Not why did she change, but what do I need right now? Not how do I get her attention again, but how can I stay aligned with my own peace? That shift is powerful, because now you're not waiting on someone else to decide your worth. You're deciding it for yourself through your actions, your boundaries, and your mindset. And it's not about pretending you don't care. It's not about being cold or detached. It's about being grounded. It's about knowing that your emotional world doesn't revolve around someone else's presence. That your value isn't confirmed by a reply, a call, or an apology. That the most important relationship in your life is the one you have with yourself. The woman you're stressing over might come back around. She might explain. She might not. But none of that changes what you have to do in the meantime. Come back to you. Get clear on who you are outside of her attention. Get anchored in the version of yourself that doesn't need to chase reactions to feel secure. Get focused on the things that build you, strengthen you, and remind you of your own direction. One of the hardest things to accept is when someone walks away without giving you a reason. No text, no explanation, no conversation, just distance, silence, confusion, and in that space, your mind starts spinning. Your heart wants clarity, but your ego wants closure, something to hold onto, something that makes it all make sense. But here's the truth. Closure is rarely about truth. It's often about control. It's your ego trying to wrap things up neatly so you can feel in charge again. Because when someone walks away, it leaves you exposed, vulnerable, and instead of sitting with that discomfort, the ego pushes you to chase answers. It convinces you that if you just get one more conversation, one more explanation, you'll be able to move on. What it doesn't tell you is that even if you get that closure, it usually doesn't satisfy you. Why? Because closure given by someone else doesn't heal what's left undone inside you. It can't fill the emotional gaps they created. It can't reverse the confusion or make the silence feel any less cold. More often than not, It just becomes another way to stay emotionally tied to someone who's already disconnected. Sometimes the reason you didn't get closure is because they didn't have the maturity to give it, or they didn't want to face the truth themselves. Or maybe they thought walking away without saying anything would hurt less than being honest. Whatever the reason, it's not your responsibility to chase down someone else's emotional courage. The deeper truth is, when you chase closure, you're really chasing validation. You want to know you mattered. You want to know you weren't crazy. You want to know they felt something too. And while all of that is human, none of it is guaranteed. Especially from someone who didn't respect you enough to communicate in the first place. So the work becomes internal. It's not about getting closure from them. It's about creating it within yourself. It's about sitting with your emotions instead of outsourcing your healing. It's about understanding that your worth isn't dependent on someone else's explanation. You don't need to understand why they left to understand what it taught you. Closure isn't a door someone else closes for you. It's a decision you make. It's when you stop waiting for an apology that might never come. It's when you stop replaying the last message, hoping it holds the secret answer. It's when you choose peace over proof, growth over resentment, and release over rumination. Your ego will tell you that if you could just talk to them one last time, you'd finally feel okay. But that's not closure, that's attachment. That's the illusion that peace comes from external clarity. In reality, peace comes from internal acceptance. Acceptance that not everything will make sense. Acceptance that not everyone has the capacity to be honest. Acceptance that healing can't wait for someone else's permission to begin. Certainly. Here's a 500-word expansion on the keynote a real connection doesn't ignore. It communicates, written in a direct yet emotionally intelligent tone that highlights emotional maturity, intentional relationships, and the importance of mutual effort a real connection doesn't ignore. It communicates 500 words when someone starts ignoring you. It can be easy to confuse that behavior with something deeper. You tell yourself she's just going through something, or that she needs space, or that maybe you just need to show her more effort so she'll come back around. You start reading silence like a puzzle, one that you're responsible for solving. But in a real connection, you don't have to play detective. You don't have to guess, chase, or decode mixed signals, because real connection doesn't hide behind distance. It leans into communication. A woman who truly values you doesn't disappear when things get uncomfortable. She doesn't shut down when emotions surface. She doesn't treat you like a placeholder while she figures out her life. She communicates openly, honestly, and even when it's difficult. That's what real intimacy looks like. It's not always smooth or perfect, but it's clear. In our culture, a lot of people confuse attention with affection. They mistake chemistry for commitment. They think a few deep conversations, some flirty nights, and consistent texts for a month mean there's a solid connection. But the truth is, connection is tested most when there's tension, when misunderstandings happen, when emotions rise. And in those moments, if someone starts ignoring you, that silence speaks louder than any sweet words they once said. When a connection is real, it invites dialogue, not disappearance. It allows space for vulnerability, not avoidance. Someone who's emotionally available and truly interested will want to be understood and will want to understand you. They won't make you guess where you stand. They'll talk it out even if it's uncomfortable. They'll address the shift, not pretend it didn't happen. Because to them, clarity matters more than comfort. You can't build something solid with someone who checks out every time things get real. That's not connection, that's convenience. And the sooner you recognize the difference, the sooner you stop settling for halfway energy from people who aren't ready to meet you where you are. Ignoring someone isn't a strategy. It's a form of disconnection, and over time it erodes trust. No matter how strong the initial spark felt, no matter how close you thought you were, silence in the face of emotional tension is a signal of emotional immaturity or emotional detachment. And neither of those traits will support the kind of relationship that lasts. When someone values connection, they don't avoid. They engage. They check in, not check out. They respond, even if they don't have all the answers. They respect your time, your feelings, and your presence enough to keep the communication honest, even if it's imperfect. So if she's ignoring you, the question isn't, how do I get her to talk to me again? The question is, why am I giving emotional access to someone who chooses silence over honesty? Because real connection isn't about never having issues. It's about being willing to face those issues together through communication, not distance. A real connection doesn't leave you guessing. When a woman ignores you, your response should come from self-respect, not insecurity. Don't chase pullback with purpose. Stay grounded and focus on your own peace. Silence is communication, and if she's not showing up with clarity, let that be your answer. Closure comes from within, not from her reaction. Confidence means honoring your standards even when emotions run high. Remember, a woman who truly values you won't ignore you. She'll communicate with you. Protect your energy, move with intention, and never shrink yourself for someone who can't recognize your worth.